Hi, Ben. Welcome to the AI Brand Voice. You've got such an interesting career and background, and I very much see you as someone who is almost like the leader of Run Club leaders. And you probably won't like me saying that because I know how modest you are, and I followed you for quite a while. And you're championing the Run Club community and also identifying the opportunities for brand partnerships and activations, which is, I think, largely an untapped territory for a lot of brand building. But just to jump in initially, I'd really like to know a bit more about your background. And I think you've had an interesting career that spanned music, tech, and then community. I might have got that wrong, but I'd like to hear it in your own words.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on and for the really kind introduction. I'll try to keep it quick. I don't want to talk about myself too much, as you alluded to. But I grew up in Nigeria. I was there for 10 years, and then I moved to the US when I was 10. And that was a really tough move for me. And I've talked a little bit about that on my social media, but I played basketball. I went to university and studied engineering, computer engineering. And then I got tired of the US after I finished, and after I finished playing basketball, and I moved to Germany. And it's been Berlin is a good city for self-discovery. So I spent a lot of time figuring out myself, and I was working in tech for the last 6 years-ish. And 3 years ago, I started a running club because I was also DJing a little bit on the side, just having fun. And really, after COVID, I didn't want to stay out late and party, but I really liked this feeling of a party. And so the goal was to create a party environment, but then with a little bit of running, a little bit of music, and just a place for people to connect, move together. And 1 year ago, a year and a bit ago, I quit my job in tech because the running club thing was becoming so big that I decided to just go all in and gamble. And I thought, this is really where my heart is. This is what I'm having the most fun doing. I'm never going to have another chance to try this. And since then, I've just been full-time run club leader.
It's pretty impressive that, yeah, you've made that transition. And from your experience then, what do you think makes a good run club community? Because I think, yeah, we've seen this sort of proliferation of run clubs probably post or during the pandemic. Yeah. And obviously run clubs were there beforehand. But what do you think makes a good run club? And why do you think run clubs are such a thing now?
Yeah. So I think that the thing that makes a good run club is the same thing that makes a good community. And that is that it's not a connection of a bunch of people to one person, but a connection of a bunch of people to each other. So it's more of a network. And all of my favorite run clubs, you notice when you show up that people care about each other, not that they're all there to follow one leader. And I also think that run clubs are blowing up because we live in a time when we are more and more disconnected from each other, and people are looking for a place where they can connect.
Absolutely. I've almost got this theory that as we sort of delve into a far more technological sort of landscape with the, adoption of AI into our everyday lives, and obviously we've gone through that from a digital perspective, almost like on a parallel track, if you like, almost in tandem, we've got this need for sort of community and a sense of belonging and things that are far more tangible. And I would say that, running clubs are a fantastic symbol of that. And I think we're going to see much more of the, sort of need for sort of human interactions and human authority, human voices. And I think I've heard you speak about how run clubs are potentially, becoming the new influencer en masse, I guess. And I'd love you to sort of speak around that concept, because I think that's a really interesting sort of insight for the audience to know.
Yeah, I think the job of an influencer is just to build a group of trust, like of people who trust them for insight into a particular niche. So if you love traveling, then a traveling influencer is somebody who gives you good tips about where to travel, about little things that only locals know about. And the value of that trust is incredible for brands because, in order to sell things, the most effective way to do that is to find people who are interested in them and then to tell them about it, especially through somebody who trusts. And so communities are really becoming this for everything. And run clubs are dominating this in, I would say, the sports scene because you have huge groups of people who are choosing to show up for an event because they really enjoy the activity. And that means that for sports brands, this is a really powerful place to then talk about good products.
And I think what I like about it most is it seems far more organic and authentic. If you've got a group of people, they want to be there at their own free will, and a brand can basically be integrated into that space. And as long as there's values alignment between the run club and the brand, then surely good things can happen. So tell me a little bit more about how brand partnerships came about for you. Was it a case of brands started reaching out to you, or were you way more active in that sort of pursuit for brand partnerships? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so when I decided to quit my job and just go full-time with the run club, the first thing that I had to figure out was how to make money, like how to sustainably pay my own rent. And so I talked to a friend and he was like, okay, the way that this works is you make a pitch deck and then you send it to a bunch of companies and then some people will say yes. And so I made an okay pitch deck with him. And then I started to make a list of companies who had reached out to us in the past or who we had worked with. And I just started emailing like hundreds of companies with this pitch deck. And nobody got back to me. Maybe one or two companies, I can't remember. But I remember feeling extremely stressed and unoptimistic about this process. And after 2 weeks, I was just like, if this is it, then I'm gone. If this is going to be the rest of my life, I don't want to do this. And so at that point, I decided to find a way to get brand partnerships that I actually liked. And so then I decided that what we were going to do is just start being really consistent about content. And so I started to interview a lot of people from the run club. I started to make videos of all the runs and basically to document all of the like powerful moving stories of the people inside the community. And after some months of like really consistently showing up every day, basically on Instagram, which is the platform we chose, then companies started to reach out. And so for the last year and a half, like I've done zero cold outreach. All of our stuff comes inbound because we have a big social media presence.
So would you say that the awareness from the brands came more from your social media presence than the sort of active outreach then?
Zero
Or was it a
awareness,
combination?
like I would say zero awareness comes from active outreach, and we do zero cold outreach.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's more a case that all of a sudden in your inbox or in your DMs, you have a brand that says, hey, we like what you're doing. We'd love to partner with you. And then a conversation starts.
Exactly. We've been following you for a little while. We already know exactly what you do. We already know exactly what we want to do together. And so it's a lot more fun to have those conversations than to send emails into the abyss.
But before you got to that sort of key moment in your life where you said that you were going to go all in on run clubs, did you have any sort of interest from brands, wanting to utilize your run club for experiential events or sampling or anything like that? And, were they, was that just almost in a kind of goodwill sense that they were just wanting you to kind of use their product and you were sort of giving out their product? Or was there any sort of money exchange at that point? Or, what was the relationship looking like before you took that move?
Yeah, definitely. So we were lucky, and one of the founders of the Run Club worked for a sports brand. And so he negotiated with the community department of that sports brand, and they gave us some community budget right at the start, and we used that to buy breakfast for people and to book a different trainer each time, because usually we have a run and then a workout at the end. And so we used a little bit of budget to give something back to the community, book trainers, get breakfast. And so I knew that this thing existed, that brands had a budget for community activations. And then in the first year and a half of doing the Run Club, we probably had 2 or 3 companies reach out for us to organize a run. And mostly those were like connected to maybe a brand that we had worked with in the past. So it was like half a combination of social media and real in-person relationships. And we had a few of them.
Okay, nice. And then for you, where does the music come in? Because I know you've got a music background and your particular run club is called Run and Rave. So what role does music play in this whole community?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, I was living in Arizona in the desert, and the only thing to do in the evening was go to a country bar. and I really don't like country music. And so me and some friends started breaking into old buildings and doing raves. And then I started collecting records, and I got quite into underground electronic music. And so since then, I've been DJing. That's probably like 10 years, just as a fun thing on the side. Now I play more like Afro house, Afro beats, more like the stuff that I listened to when I was a kid. I'm much more likely to play some Michael Jackson now than some crazy techno. But yeah, for the last 10 years, music has been something that has brought a lot of meaning into my life. And so when we started the running club, we thought, okay, this is a way for us to take all of this party, music, connection, fun, but do it in a way that's not like 3 o'clock in the morning drunk.
Nice. Bit more of a kind of healthy lifestyle living sort of vibe.
Exactly.
Which I think was basically what people want as well at the moment. You know, I think that there's less appetite for going out drinking. There's more appetite for living a healthier lifestyle. I think this very much plays into that. So what would, if you were to give one piece of advice, one singular piece of advice to a running club leader to grow their running club community, what would you be telling them, and how could they go about it?
I would say start with a good team. Sit down with some of your friends and share the vision and assign some tasks, figure out what everybody's good at, and then build it together. Because the more people who you involve in organizing from the beginning, the easier the work will be and the more impact you'll have.
So you think that like doing it solo, completely independently, is actually quite a big task for one person to do? You need a bit of a team around you. You need someone that can focus on brand partnerships. You need someone that's kind of like servicing the actual community and the people involved in it and so on. Is it like that?
Absolutely. I think you need several people who are focused on just the community. And the more you allow people to focus on one thing, the better those things get done. I would say it's actually impossible to do everything right as a solo organizer. People do their best, but it's I work with a lot of run club leaders, and the thing that I almost always notice is that solo organizers overlook a lot of stuff because you just don't have enough time, and they're almost always working a full-time job and doing this on the side. So imagine you have a couple hours a week to organize, to do 20 jobs basically, and in my case, I'm a full-time run club leader, and I focus almost exclusively on partnerships and a little bit of strategy. And then we have 19 other organizers who take on all the other responsibilities, and it's still more. There's still more to do, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just to jump back a little bit, I want to talk a bit more about the brand involvement here. And would you say that brands are now waking up to run clubs as an activation channel, or do you think it's still brands are still getting comfortable with this idea?
That's a very good question. I don't really know what the stage is of brands being willing to work with run clubs compared to something in the past, because I've only been in the space for 3 years and really only focused for 1 year. I definitely feel like it's underutilized. I have some idea about where brands spend their money in marketing, and I think that there's a huge amount more potential in terms of community marketing.
Okay, cool. And then can you give us an example of where you feel like a brand activation and a partnership with your run club that it really works, that you have, you know, added value and benefit to the community, and actually the brand is benefiting from it, it's getting the exposure and it's getting the integration of their product and so on? Like, have you got an example of how that can really come together and work for both parties?
Yeah. So we've been really lucky in that almost all of the partners who reach out have been a really good value fit. So we've worked now with Saucony, the shoe brand, for 1.5 years. And so we basically plan a whole year worth of powerful, elevated activations with them. And then we have some always on stuff. We had a little community hub, which they helped us to pay for a few months. And in that hub, we had a wall of shoes. And what happened is that the first time we did a run, we were like, hey, anybody who wants to try on a pair of shoes can wear them. And every week, it was like a few more people would try on the shoes, a few more people would try on the shoes. And now, after a year of having these shoes available on every one of our runs, the first thing a lot of people say when they come in is like, hey, can I borrow a pair of shoes? And I personally think that if you want to sell shoes, the absolute best way to do it is to get people to try them. So I would say that the value for the brands of having every week of the year people who are connected to the brand, connected to a community that is connected to the brand, trying the product is a very powerful marketing force.
So clearly, partnering with sports brands makes a lot of sense, right? The subject is running, so everyone there is going to be health minded. A pair of running shoes is a natural fit. But then, do you sometimes have partners that are not involved naturally within the running space, but you still feel that there's like a values alignment there?
Yeah, our latest partnership, the latest partner event that we did was with Igloo, like the cooler company. And we did a run and then like barbecue kind of thing where after the run, we had drinks, we enjoyed the sun. And Igloo now also makes some sports. It's called a sports sipper. It's like a thermos can that you can put cold water in. And so there's lots of ways, like even though they have never been focused exclusively on sports, it's very easy to find the overlapping values and then really emphasize those in the partnership.
Okay, nice. And then are there examples? I mean, you don't have to name any names. I recommend you don't, but where it hasn't particularly worked, where a brand partnership has sort of it's maybe failed, or you've not quite found the alignment with the values of your run club. But there's some sort of watch outs you would recommend to people that do have run club communities there.
We've been really lucky in that all of our partnerships have felt really natural. And for me, one marker of that is that like when we do an activation with a brand, a lot more people show up for the event. Like all of our core community is still there, and even more people come because because it's a lot of people who like are orbitally following our community, and then when they find out that we're partnering with somebody who makes a product that they're interested in, then it's two reasons to show up. And so that's how I've measured that all of our partnerships have been a good value alignment for our community. If I didn't feel like it was going to be a good match, then I would just say no to the partnership.
Okay. And then what sort of stage are you at now? Would you say that there's quite a nice conveyor belt of brands? I mean, you talked about Saucony being almost like an always-on partner, and you have some sort of long-standing relationship with them. But do you find that you have a constant flow of partners willing to work with you? And I know you said that you're not doing, or you're hardly doing any outreach now, but would you say that brand partnerships are quite easy to come by, or are you still finding that you have to do a lot of content for that to be enabled?
So I am doing absolutely zero outreach. Like in 1.5 years, I have not sent one outreach email, except for the first 2 weeks when I started it and then realized that I never want to do it again. And we have 1, 2, 3 potential partners reach out per week, I would say. And that like our social media strategy is that we try to share something inspiring every day. So I'm pretty sure that the pipeline, that's how the pipeline is working, is just that we reach a lot of people on social media and we're extremely consistent. That is our one and only form of attracting potential partners. And so it is absolutely necessary that we make a lot of content in order for people to reach out, in order for partners to reach out, but we take a lot of joy in sharing these cool stories. So it's an efficient and fun way to get partners.
Nice. I mean, when it comes to, obviously, we're talking about social media, and then obviously we've got the sort of slightly more physical, in real life side of things when it comes to a running club. But when it comes to numbers and being meaningful for a brand to partner with you or another similar run club, what are the sort of numbers that a run club community needs to be looking at for it to be worthwhile for a brand to partner with them? Is there anything where like, you know that you need a social media following of X and you need your run club community to be this size? Like, does size matter, I think, is the question that I'm getting
I would say size affects who you work with and what you charge, but there's no bottom limit. I think that you could start a run club tomorrow and have 1 or 2 people, and there would be a brand that would still be really valuable for, because it's a really good value match. So also as an example, like depending on what the values of your community are, you can be a really powerful match for companies. A run club in Berlin called the Lazy Fuck Run Club, and their thing is that they smoke cigarettes and drink beer afterwards. And so it's really easy for them to reach out to a bar or a brewery or something, and no matter they they have a really nice social media. They don't have many followings, but like it's organized by a designer, and brands are really, it's a very easy pitch for them. They're like, we'll make some cool content. You'll appear really nicely on social media. And even if nobody shows up and there's no real good content, you can still walk away saying, hey, we did something that makes us proud as a brand. We supported something that we believe in.
Okay, nice. And then is there, once you've, sort of had an activation with a brand, there's a focal point, there's a particular event in the sort of calendar for that particular season, you've worked towards it. Do you go about any sort of post campaign or post activation analysis with them to say, like, this was the level of engagement that your particular product or your brand had with our community, this was the amplification it got on the reach it got on social media?
I do exactly that. I do a post event impact report where I tally all of the numbers on the social media posts that we had as deliverables. I talk about how many people were there, and then also if we do something like a giveaway or product testing, then I also quantify that. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Okay, so one interesting thing about that though is that nobody has ever really asked for that. It was just something that I intuited out of conversations that people might enjoy. And so usually when I send that, brands are quite surprised and happy to have it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm almost surprised that you were being proactive on that front and they're not. I mean, so it sort of shows, I guess, the level of professionalism a run club can start to kind of take on, really. And I think that's quite symbolic by the fact that you're now dedicating your time solely to building the run club. So with that in mind, I mean, you started the run club as a passion project. It's become, far more serious and more impactful, just globally and as a thing, and for you as an individual. So where do you think things are heading now with wellness communities and run clubs and brand partnerships? How are you starting to see things play out in the future?
Yeah, everybody needs advertising. And I think that the most effective form of advertising is one where you are speaking to people who have already expressed that you're interested in a concept. There's a book called Permission Marketing by Seth Godin, which was written 30 years ago. And it's literally about this. It's like the best form of marketing is to share helpful information for people who would be interested in your product so that they raise their hands and they say, when you make something that's going to help me, then tell me about it, right? So you have a big community of people who are very actively interested in what a company is making. And that makes a lot more sense than spraying a message to people who are mostly uninterested. So I would say that community marketing is a form of like really efficient, targeted marketing towards people who are an ideal fit for your brand. And communities happen to be very good at doing this. So it's quite a good partnership there, I think, in that communities have an intrinsic incentive to gather people who are focused around a particular topic, and then brands who do something related to that topic can really take advantage of the trust and hard work that these communities have built, and then the communities get some back. And the great thing I think about this partnership is that nobody loses. Like, you, as a community, if you share a product that your community is interested in, it is not like you are selling out. So you are actually providing people with access to something that they are probably interested in and are grateful for being connected to.
Brilliant response to the final question of the podcast, Ben. I think we're going to wrap up there. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed watching your content, understanding what you're all about. I think you've got a great message for brands and this community era, as I like to call it, thing that's going on and building in the background. And I think it's incredibly powerful. And you summed it up really nicely in that last response. So I just wanted to finish the podcast by saying, keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing work. A lot of people look to you, for your leadership and your understanding of how to build these communities, whether it's a run club or a tennis club or a wellness club. And I think you should carry on doing that fantastic work, and also bringing that understanding to the world about how brands can really get involved in this space in a really authentic way. And I wanted to thank you for being on this podcast and sharing all your knowledge and insights.
Thanks so much. And I do it for selfish reasons as well. It brings me an endless amount of joy to hear the stories and to be able to help people like create some sort of meaning in their lives. Yeah, it's been an amazing privilege to be able to do this for the last couple of years. And I can remember so many of the individual stories and the people who I've talked to and shared information with. And that is worth way more than any amount of money.